Let's go to Strasbourg now, where our political editor, Darren McCaffrey, is there. Darren, we're just talking about the timeline there. Donald Tusk said yesterday that he would recommend that the EU approves that extension for the UK. But how would another delay work?
Well, essentially what's happening today is that Donald Tusk, the EU Council President, is calling up those other 27 EU leaders, trying to work out what would be acceptable to them in regards an extension. Now, I have to say, at the moment, a bit like the weather here in Strasbourg, things are slightly unclear about how long that extension would be and whether it would be a flex extension to this process. I think the most likely outcome is that Donald Tusk is going to recommend an extension until the end of January next year. That is what the UK Parliament wanted it, but that it could be flexible. That is, i.e., if the legislation manages to pass the UK Parliament and the Parliament here in Strasbourg at some point in between now and then the UK could leave at that point, whether it be mid-November in a couple of weeks' time, whether it be just before Christmas. I think that's where we're likely to end up. What is also interesting from Donald Tusk's tweet last night is that seemingly he thinks this all could be done by simply sending a letter to the UK government rather than all the EU leaders having to get together in Brussels at an extraordinary summit.
There has been some pushback on an idea of another extension. Could one EU nation just scupper the whole thing and veto it?
In theory, yes, they could. Clearly, any decision needs anonymity. However, it must be said that I think that is very, very unlikely. The most likely suspect in all of this, of course, is France. They have huffed and puffed an awful lot, Rosie, in the last couple of weeks about how they are not terribly keen on an extension, particularly a long one. The Foreign Minister quoted last night as suggesting that they wanted simply a technical extension of a couple of days, simply to get the legislation through. Again, that is possible. It depends on the decision that Boris Johnson makes. If he decides that actually, you know what, I think I can get this bill through, let's put a general election on the back burner for a couple of weeks or months, potentially into next year, and let's try and get this legislation through, well, simply an extension of a couple of weeks may be all that is needed.
Darren, it seems that the main priority of the EU actually at this point is just to avoid having a no deal.
And it really is. And that is why, when it comes down to it, despite what people may say, despite sometimes the words that you hear from some EU leaders, that they will always offer an extension. That is what Donald Tusk said yesterday. Why would the EU go for no deal? They have reopened the withdrawal agreement to help Boris Johnson out. Essentially, if they were to go for no deal, they would be blamed for it. It would cause some economic chaos in Europe at a time in which the European economy is pretty fragile. And, of course, it would do over Ireland and return a hard border to the island of Ireland. There is no way in a million years the EU are going to allow no deal to happen, at least be blamed for it. That is why they will always offer an extension. The question this morning, Rosie, which hopefully we'll get an answer to either today or tomorrow, is just how long that extension will be.
Darren McCaffrey, our political editor, live in Strasbourg. Thank you.